Monday, June 22nd, 2020. Jeff Fritz here in our cover crop trial outside of New Windsor, Maryland. We're about 38 days from planting on this. This plot was planted May 16th. So things are looking pretty well, pretty good out across here. So we're going to look at each mix where we had it, what the corn looks like. There's some differences. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some ugly. So this corn was planted 38 days ago on the 16th of May. We're at about 700 growing degree units according to the GDU calculator I have on an app on my phone. So we're probably plus or minus 50 there to what it's actually accurate. Corn's right in that V5, V6 range. Last week we were through, did a respray to catch any weed escapes, and we did a top dress of dry fertilizer. Had some showers right behind it. Corn's turned on here, ready to go. She's got what she needs at the moment. So next part of this is I'm planting a third top dress on my other corn acres. These acres will not get them. Right now we're in that 160 units of nitrogen that's been applied to this crop, and we're going to go with another 50 to 60. Nutrient management plan with what my yield history is allows for that. We're going to go with that on the other acres, not here in the plot, because we want to see which of these will exploit the nitrogen back to the corn the best. So right now we're in the first strip, which was green and low. That's Dixie reseeding crimson clover and the low boy annual ryegrass mix. You can see we got a really nice kill on this. We have a super mat on the ground that's holding that moisture, and we got a pretty good stand here. It's not perfect. We've got some holes here and there. You can see where there were some issues where it didn't close quite as well as I'd like to see it close, but all in all, a really nice looking batch of corn here that's got what it needs to move on. And we're going to hold these windy hot days, we're holding moisture down there for this corn to use. I think this corn is a hair behind what the next we're going to look at, just because of the amount of biomass that was here, and we were a little delayed emergence and early growth on this corn. We'll see how that affects us down the road, but there again, this is in that V5, V6 range. So I'm liking what I see in here in this green and low mix with the amount of biomass that I have holding moisture, and it's decaying. Those roots are decaying, releasing nutrients to this corn, and I like what I see here in green and low. There's a big difference in moisture, huge difference. So here I just scratched away on the top. This is in that green and low, and you can see what the biomass is laying there holding. I mean, this ground is damp. It is damp underneath. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sun's high in the sky, and that's holding that moisture right in there. Now when we split mixes here, we're right at the line, and if you look up across here, you can see the difference in the corn. Now this corn's the same variety, planted the exact same, probably within 5 minutes of each other, and you can see the difference in this corn. Now both of these mixes scavenge and produce nitrogen for the following crop. The difference we're seeing in these two, the Maize Pro mix, which is what's here on the right, with the hairy vetch, probably produced us more nitrogen, is what it's looking like. I think what we're really seeing the difference is we had that slower delayed emergence. Not really delayed, but it was just slower to come out here in that crimson clover and all that biomass. And here we didn't have the biomass to compete with. But when we look down here at the soil, right here we've got bare soil. Now there's moisture there. You don't have to scratch hardly anything off to find the moisture, but it's not as prevalent as over there. That's what that extra biomass is doing for us. This corn's actually about a leaf ahead. We're between V6 and V7 in this corn, as compared to in the green and low, and that has to do with that biomass. Just what I'm seeing, it looks like, and watching this from the beginning, we didn't get as much early growth on this corn. It was slower because of heat, sunshine hitting the soil and actually warming it. By all stretches of the matter, I mean, this will be interesting to look at when we come back in at 8 weeks, 10 weeks from now, and look at the corn and see where we're at. But that's when you absolutely see the difference between the amount of biomass that's on the ground and the Green and Low versus the Maize Pro, and how this corn is. I mean, it's rolling over here in this. So now we're between the DSV Maize Pro mix and the DSV Betamax mix. When you look out across here, you can see I see an advantage over the Maize Pro over the Betamax, which is on the right. This corn, it doesn't have quite the doesn't look quite as good as what it does on the next row over, but there again, it's in that V6 V7 range. It's a little further ahead than where it is in the Green and Low. Not as nearly, there was very little biomass here when we planted through it. This mix is designed to mostly winter kill, a large majority of it. It was really sweet planting here, but there again, we actually have more biomass laying on the ground in the Maize Pro than we do in the Betamax. And we can look down here and just see where we got, she's dry and crusty right there. We actually have to go just a smidge more to find that moisture, and it's about the top of the soil being covered. Now this corn is close to canopy and over. I would suspect within the week we'll have a nice canopy shading this ground, and that loss of moisture isn't going to be as big a concern. Corn looks good. I like what I see, but so far we can see where we've really got the nitrogen exploitation out of that Maize Pro mixture, and how much different that corn looks at this stage of the game. Alright, so now we're over in our Betamax mix, much the same as the last we looked at. You know, it was a lot nicer planting through this because there wasn't nearly the amount of biomass here. Corn came right on out of the ground, jumped up. Doesn't have quite the color I'd like to see to it. We did get just a smidge of leaf burn here and there when we did our top dress, but really not bad. My applicators caught that about perfect timing with some moisture, and really happy we didn't get hardly any burn out of it. But that is what you see there on those leaf edges, is just a little bit of nitrogen burn. Population, we're right on the money here in about that 34,000 was what our target population was. We're in probably within 97-98% of that. So excellent stand here in this mix. Looking good. Just doesn't have quite as dark a green a color. That Maize Pro is tough to beat on the color of the corn the stage it's in. But things look really good. And out across there, we can still see the remnants of some cabbage hanging up through there. That stuff stood up all the way along here. That's actually how I'm kind of differentiating until I get some flags out to where my mixes are. But still evident of what was left, what was here and behind, and what we've got going on. Same thing in the soil moisture. We're a little dry on top, and we've had some nice rain the other night. We just had about a half an inch. Had a couple showers, thunderstorms there on Friday. So we're in really good shape here on this corn. So we're in our Regal DT strip. The Regal DT mix is geared towards those soils where you have some compaction that you want to take care of, and along those lines does a really nice job of breaking up those hard pans. But we didn't have a tremendous amount of biomass here when we planted. You can see here where we got much nicer row closure just because the planter did a nicer job, partly because the soil was drier and there was less biomass to deal with. And we put the knife in there, and we can just take this, and right there, that's right out of the side of the seed trench. Basically, there is no seed trench here. It's really nice. Soil's really mellow here. Stuff's breaking down. Top can be a little drier just because of the amount of biomass. Actually, out of the DSV mixes, those 4 mixes that we had in this strip, in this trial, my favorite in appearance right now is the Maize Pro. and this would be a second. I just like the way the corn looks in this one. It's more appealing to the eye, to me. But you know, we'll find out here this fall which one's the best. But I like what I'm seeing out of this mix too. And the Regal DT is actually will be the most economical of the DSV mixes to plant. And you can get away with planting that one just a little bit later in the fall than you can these other ones, as compared to the Maize Pro. The Maize Pro is a product that we want to get in that mid-August after wheat, early September at the latest, whereas the Regal DT, you can cheat that a little bit on the backside if you need to. Does a really nice job of breaking up those hard pans. So back on May 5th, I promised that we would show the good, bad, and the ugly. So this not one of my prouder moments here. This has nothing to do with the mix itself. This next strip here is King's broadcaster mix, and here's what we got going on here. This is what I'm going to surmise from. This corn is behind. It's at least a leaf and a half behind, maybe more. So there was a tremendous amount of biomass that I planted through here. Matter of fact, when I planted through it, I didn't think any of it was going to come up. I thought, what am I doing? Anyway, we had biomass. This and the next mix we're going to walk into, I had biomass to my waist, and it was green. Planted fine, no wrapping, nothing like that. We got satisfactory row closure. The ground was really heavy underneath, but you can see that it just kept the ground cool. And this corn was probably delayed, I bet, 5 days slower till we could actually see it out of the ground. And after we did this burn down, so it was planned on the 16th, the 17th it was burnt down immediately, and a good burn down. What we got here is we've got annual ryegrass, and this is a forage type annual ryegrass, and it was so big, and nothing to discredit my my spray applicator, because he does an excellent job. It's just the nature of the beast. This stuff was so big. We had an incredibly good burn. I was really happy with it. But what you see actually came up from underneath. It was what was rolled down, and we didn't get chemical to. And that's the way I've seen this all along. And the chemical just didn't work on some of this, and as the biomass is dried up that was rolled down, it's come back through. Now, it hasn't been long enough since we resprayed. It hasn't been quite a week yet. Roundup can be a little on the slow side, but I'm confident we'll have a good enough kill here that we'll be in good shape. But you can just see the difference. Now, there's a tremendous amount of moisture underneath this mat. I mean, it's like we're not even touching the soil when we walk on it. If we get really hot and dry, that may completely skew what we see here. There again, and my cameraman said this was really planted the same day, and I said this was literally planted 5 minutes apart. It's the difference in that biomass. So this corn's behind. Obviously haven't written it off. We've cleaned it up with some chemicals. It's in the process of dying off. We've supplemented nitrogen to it. And in this hot weather, now that it's really not completing with all that biomass, it's going to take off and grow. We may not see much difference in it at the end of this whole thing. I think we're definitely going to see a yield drag here, but you know, lesson learned. We just got so much biomass here that it created us some problems. I am personally amazed that I even have a stand of corn here. So you know, we'll see how it all shakes out here through the season. So I promised good, bad, and ugly. I've showed you good. I've shown you some really good. I've shown you some ugly. And I'm not going to rate this one as ugly. I'm going to rate this one as bad. And it's really not that bad. Here again, just like in that last mix. So the last mix was a King's broadcaster mix. This mix is the King's Soil Builder Plus mix. What we're seeing has nothing to do with the mix in particular. They are excellent mixes, and if you want to make forage out of a cover crop, they are both good ones to look at. Fact of the matter is, we just had so much biomass here. Matter of fact, I made a phone call that afternoon to another grower, and we were having a chat, and I said, I already know I'm going to replant corn, and that was, I had just pulled out of this. So just like the last mix, the fact that we have what we have, you know, I'm happy for what we have, but it ain't pretty. So anyway, the flip side of that is, and there again, we've got a little annual ryegrass that's kind of that give us a little trouble here in our spray program. That should be taken care of now. It doesn't look it, but it's on its way to being gone, I believe. So, but we're right here. There's probably a good inch and a half of biomass, and just scraped off with the shoe there, and look at the moisture that's holding. So that's what kind of held us back, was the amount of biomass here, and then the corn. You know, the soil was cooler. It was slower coming in emergence. And you know, over here in this row here, you can see we got spindly plants. They're ugly looking. Corn's behind, going to be behind all season long. You know, we certainly haven't written it off yet. We won't write it off yet, but I think we can obviously see that there is going to be some yield drag here, and it's just the fact of the amount of biomass. Had we been in here 2 weeks sooner, this would not look like it does now, and it absolutely has to do with the amount of biomass. And it's a tremendous amount of stuff to plant through. We got a really decent stand for what I had to deal with here, and there again, this mix as well, waist high stuff, thick, didn't wrap anything up on the planter. Seed went in the ground. We actually have, I didn't count this one, but I'm going to say we're probably within 95-96% of our planting population, so you know, not a loss at all. But then again, we'll see what Way Wagon says this fall. All right, so we're in our last strip of this trial. We are in the conventional tilled portion here. You'll look at it and you go, well, this isn't a very good advertisement for cover crops. This is an advertisement for working ground. Well, corn sure does look good. It's right along there in that V6, V7, shot right out of the ground. Didn't have any issues with row closure, anything like that here. But here's what we do see, and this is what I don't like. If you remember back, we talked about there was a hedgerow through here, so we have to take that into account. We ran across this with a bulldozer, skid loader, and the ground was in decent condition when I did all those things. Matter of fact, the bulldozer was across this ground when it was dry last fall when I pushed this hedgerow out. We ran the disc and cultipacker over this several times. The ground was dry this spring. We caught a really nice spot there to catch it. But look at the variation in these rows. This is one planter pass and worked ground right across those rows. There's a lot of inconsistency there that I don't like to see. I mean, here we go. We got corn that's there to about to my pocket, and then we get up here and we got corn there that's about to my waist. I think what we're seeing here is this was, for whatever reason, there was compaction through here. There again, we're going to see what the Way Wagon tells us in the fall. This corn looks really good in this work ground, but still not my favorite out of the 8 strips that we have. All right, so here's an unplanned part of this, and we were looking at it from over there, and I was talking about it a little bit. Folks, I swear to you, this is the same variety of corn planted the same day as that cover crop plot, within an hour, maybe 2. Okay, same program, same chemical program, same fertility program. Here's what the difference is, and this is, I'm going to go back to where I talk about I like to use hay as a 4-year cover crop in my row crop. So the history on this is this farm, we purchased this farm last spring. This particular piece has been in grass for quite a while. At one time, this was a dairy years and years ago. Probably haven't been, I don't think there's been cows here since the mid-90s. And this was pasture. And then the folks that were farming it before we bought it, they made hay on this ground. I made the decision to take it out. The stand was getting thinned off. It was pretty trashy, and I've got other hay ground that I wasn't worried about this. So we planted through this. This was planted through green. Now you can look down in here and you can see what we've got going on here in biomass. There was a fair amount of bluegrass in here, which is short, but there was plenty of orchard grass and some other stuff that had some height to it, and we ran right through this, planted green, and nuked it off. And this here, this is the end goal. This is absolutely the end goal. This is the kind of corn crop we want to see 38 days from planting. I mean, it is rolling. Absolutely, probably the nicest stand-out corn I have. I got about 100 acres planted. There's approximately 7-8 acres here. Best corn on any of the farms. This is tremendous. And this shows you the difference in soil health and soil quality and what we can do. These cover crops are a huge piece of that puzzle. While some of what we got going on here is ugly and maybe not what we want to see, this is the end goal. This is what we want to see. Just absolutely a tremendous looking corn crop, just run out of the gate like a racehorse, and we'll see what happens with it here in the fall. Really impressed with this.